Welcome to The Explainer. We all want to be smarter, right? But what if smart is kind of the wrong goal? Today, we're going to deconstruct this whole idea of intellect and move way beyond just IQ to a much more powerful way of understanding our own minds.
So let's just jump right into the deep end with this question. Is there a real difference between being smart and being intellectual? Well, the material we're looking at today argues that there's a huge difference and that really getting a handle on it is the key to unlocking our full potential. To really get this, think of it like this. Intelligence is kind of like your raw potential, the basic reasoning architecture of your brain. But intellect, that's something more. It's the orchestration of all your mental abilities. And here's the kicker. It's not some fixed trait you're born with. It's a dynamic, compounding asset that we can actually build throughout our entire lives. Okay, so if we can build it, how do we do it? Well, the model we're using gives us this great visual, a pyramid. Think of it as an architecture for creating meaning, and we're going to build it together layer by layer. So our journey up this pyramid is going to take us through 4 key stages. We're starting from the very bottom, the biological foundation of our minds, then moving up through the engine of our thoughts, all the way to the top, the apex of wisdom, and finally to what it all produces, insight itself. Let's start at the foundation, our raw cognitive horsepower. This is basically the biological hardware that our intellect runs on. The first piece of this foundation is brainpower. And yeah, think of it literally as your mind's cognitive horsepower. This isn't just some vague idea of being smart. We're talking about the actual speed and efficiency of your mental processing, like how much working memory you have on tap and how efficiently your neurons are firing. Now, here's what's so crucial about this foundation. It isn't fixed. It's not set in stone. Because of neuroplasticity, this incredible ability our brains have to adapt and literally rewire themselves, our core cognitive hardware is designed for expansion. We are built to learn and grow. All right, let's move up to the next layer and see how all that raw brain power gets structured into a functional processing engine. I mean, it's one thing to have a powerful computer, right? But it's a whole other thing to have the right software to run on it. And that software, it really starts with logic. You can think of this as the syntax of cognition, the grammar of your thoughts. It provides the rules and the structure for our thinking, making sure our ideas make sense and that our conclusions are actually sound. It's the framework for seeking truth. So who's managing this whole process? Well, that would be your executive function. This is basically the CEO of your mind. It's your cognitive governance, and it's in charge of directing your attention, managing your memory, controlling your impulses, and keeping you focused on actually getting things done. Without a strong executive function, even the most powerful brain power can just spin its wheels. Okay, as we get to the summit of the pyramid, we're moving beyond just simple processing and into the highest forms of human thought. This is where intellect really truly separates itself from just being intelligent. At the very peak of the pyramid, we find wisdom, which is defined here as mature cognition. And notice, this isn't just about being logical. It's about harmonizing that logic with things like ethics, empathy, and a really deep awareness of long-term consequences. You could say it's intelligence with humanity baked in. So we've built our pyramid from our biological brain power all the way up to wisdom. But what does it all produce? What's the output? Well, this brings us to the final part of our model, and we can actually put everything we've talked about into a single, powerful equation for growth. So here it is. Intellect is your cognitive capacity multiplied by your knowledge, which is then multiplied by your discipline. And all of that comes together to produce the final output, insight. The most important thing to see here is that it's a multiplication formula. That means if any one of these elements is 0, the whole output is 0. They all have to work together. So let's just break that down one more time. Your cognitive capacity, that's your brain power. Your knowledge, that's the mental database you're working with. And your discipline, that's your cognitive governance, your focus. The key takeaway here is that you can actively work on every single one of these variables. And by improving each of them, you increase that final output, that amazing flash of insight. This brings us to what might be the most profound takeaway from this entire framework. The real purpose of cultivating your intellect. It turns out it's about a lot more than just solving problems or being clever. Intellect is not what the mind knows, but how the mind becomes through knowing. Just let that sink in for a second. This isn't just about accumulating information, it's about how the very process of learning and reasoning and seeking wisdom fundamentally transforms you. The ultimate goal of intellect isn't just to know, it's to become.
So, as we wrap this up, the question really turns back to you. Looking at all these different components we've talked about, from neuroplasticity all the way up to wisdom, which part of your own intellectual architecture are you going to start building next? Thanks for joining us.